Good evening, whakaalawhalahiatu, and welcome to our bulletin of BCN News for tonight. Leading the news tonight, Rocksafe is a new contact tracing protocol currently being trialled at 3 locations in Alofi, at the Niue Hospital Central Service Station, and the customer service desk at Telecom Niue at the Commercial Centre. BCN asked the Director General of the Ministry of Social Services, Gayleen Tasmania, to tell us more about Rocksafe.
The Rocksafe is a contact tracing protocol. It's easier to say app, but it's the protocol because it isn't just the app itself. It's the database and all the other information, the stuff that happens behind the scenes, which is part of the protocol. So the app is what you see up front, but it's more than just the Rocksafe app. So we had initially asked if the New Zealand contact tracing app could be applied in Niue so that you can trace people who went around in New Zealand, come here, for example, but that wasn't possible. So then we found out about Rocksafe, which was something that the Cook Islands had trialled, and they have already rolled it out, being developed by the Cook Islands Chamber of Commerce. So we got in touch, and right now the trial is here in Niue. It's basically we're rebranding Rocksafe into Rocksafe, and it's a partnership between the Health Department, Ministry of Social Services, the Cook Islands Chamber of Commerce, and Telecom Niue, because they have the network, obviously, that would drive this. So that's basically what it is. It's a contact tracing protocol. It is one of many requirements under quarantine-free travel.
Members of the public will be issued with a QR number, which you will then use at all public venues you visit. The government will be rolling out the contact tracing protocol Rocksafe next month, which requires collaboration with the business community and public places that members of the public visit on a regular basis. Rocksafe, including the terminals at all businesses and public venues, is funded by the government.
I think the important message that I'd like people to understand is that this is not about us trying to find out where you were at a particular time. We don't need to know that you'd been at a bar for how many hours or days even. We just need to know that if someone came to hospital and was confirmed as having COVID-19, we can look at where that person had been and others who had been around that premise or in that proximity around the times that the person was, and we come to you directly. That's what this is about. This is about getting information that we can use to strengthen our contact tracing protocols.
And the Minister of Finance, Crossley Tatui, has confirmed that the government is considering options for those who were currently on the government's wage subsidies. He said that the assistance from the government is not going to end completely. Minister Tatui was on the News of the Week radio program on Friday last week. Minister Crossley Tatui says that the wage subsidies is not coming to a complete end, that they are working very hard to see how the government can continue the arrangement.
We are working hard to see how we could continue the arrangement with changes to the way we calculate subsidies so that it is fair to everyone, especially those households who have no one working for the government or in the government. So we need that balancing factor, analyzing the reports and information for everyone to be fair. I have said in my budget statement last year for all of us not to take advantage of COVID-19.
Minister Tatui says that the government is also losing money and not making revenue it would normally do with taxation and from other revenue earners like bulk fuel.
So we're looking at options like redeployment of labor from the private sector to the government, looking at the social benefits arrangement that we have. So some are the options we are possibly looking at the moment.
BCN News understands that the Niue Tourist Authority Board and the Niue Chamber of Commerce Board have met and presented options for government consideration on the wage subsidies, given that the borders remain closed. And the tourism sector has received $1.15 million from the New Zealand government. Part of this fund is to prepare the industry for when the borders will open and tourism will resume, whenever that may be. BCN News spoke to the chairperson of the Niue Tourist Authority Board, Ms. Vanessa Marsh.
Last week, the New Zealand High Commission Office had the opportunity to announce some funding assistance to the tourism sector to the amount of $1.15 million. That business case had been put together with the support of the Tourism Office, the Board, and the New Zealand High Commission Office through their Deputy High Commissioner, Nigel. The focus of the funding support is really to support some of the challenges that the tourism sector has been facing as a result of COVID and the travel restrictions that are currently in place. So this isn't essentially new money. It's money that would have normally been allocated for tourism support if we had continued to have a normal tourism season. So the business case that was developed was to provide some maintenance support to tourism product and services here on the island, and it's part of a larger package of financial support that New Zealand continues to provide Niue and in particular to the tourism sector.
When asked about the tourism sector's response to a travel bubble, Vanessa Marsh said that the Tourist Authority Board have not been involved in any discussions of a travel bubble, but that they are there to make sure that the tourist operators are ready and willing to begin operations if and when the time comes for a travel bubble.
We don't have much of an input into how the negotiations are going around establishing a travel bubble or potentially opening up the borders. The feedback from the operators during our focus group meetings, which were held in September last year, is that they would reserve their own right to remain closed if a travel bubble was to open and they felt that Niue wasn't in a really good place or well prepared enough to receive visitors and to minimize the risk of COVID entering the country. So they had said that, if the borders open, they might still stay closed because they want to protect themselves and their families. All we really want to say is that we are working on providing support to them. We don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, that can tell us what things might look like 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, but whatever information that we are able to receive from the committees or those responsible for working on the travel bubble, we would share that with the operators and allow them time to be prepared and to reach a decision as to how they want to approach any potential travel bubbles.
And the question on many people's minds over the past few weeks has been, when will the quarantine-free travel to New Zealand start? According to the Office of the Premier, there is nothing to update as yet on the quarantine-free travel. So BCN News asked the Director General of Social Services, Gayleen Tasmania, for the latest from the government officials level.
At the official level, we've given all the plans, all the protocols, which includes contact tracing, to the New Zealand government at the official level. So now we're just waiting on them to tell us what else we need to do next. So just like we're waiting on Premier Minister to maybe whisper into the ear of PM Ardern and where are we at with this, but we've done all that we were asked to do, and now it's about practicing some of these things that were requirements. So one of the examples I can give you is exit screening is one of the requirements at the airport. We began that on Monday, and just because QFT isn't here yet, or one way anyway, our guys are already starting to roll out some of the requirements. So we have an opportunity to refine things. So it's not a requirement as yet because we haven't officially started, but it gives our team an opportunity to refine the way that they do things.
And we patiently look forward to when the quarantine-free travel one way for us to go into New Zealand will begin. And a gathering organised by the New Zealand High Commission was held yesterday for the scholarship students funded by NZAID. High Commissioner Her Excellency Helen Tana congratulated the students for being able to attain scholarships, and she spoke also of the expectations that often come with the opportunity of a scholarship.
The purpose, as I said, is really to celebrate education and to celebrate the importance of scholarships. And the first thing I'd like to do is congratulate all of you who have won a scholarship and who have taken up and succeeded in your scholarships, or who are about to study and continuing with your study. It's a really good achievement, and applying for a scholarship takes an awful lot of courage. It's something that you should be proud of. And I say it takes courage because you know that when you apply for a scholarship, you're applying with the weight of expectation of your family, of your community and your country. You're applying with your friends, so you know that your colleagues and your peers at school are also hoping to get a scholarship. And you're also trying to decide what it is that you actually want to study, and it's quite difficult sometimes to make a decision when you're in your late teens about what it is that you want to do with your life and with your career. And these scholarships are really big investments.
The Minister of Education and Social Services, Sauni Tongatule, was in attendance with other senior government officials from the Public Service Commission and the education sector. The Minister thanked the New Zealand government for their continuous support of the scholarship program, but he said the Niue government also needs to invest in its human capital.
To the New Zealand government for all the assistance in providing support for in terms of educating our people. I always felt that the human capital has not been recognized by government in terms of allocating resources to educate their people. There's always been infrastructure, there's always health and other areas, but I think it's quite important that we should allocate some resources to educate our human capital, the more important ones.
The High Commissioner also spoke about these tough COVID pandemic times when scholarship studies are impacted and students are not able to resume their studies as they normally would. The event was also an opportunity to recognise the efforts of 3 New Zealand Aid scholarship students who have completed their training and have returned to the island.
We hope that next year they will be hopefully back to a slightly more normal circumstance, and the applications for our scholarships will open soon. So I'm conscious that we'd just like to pay, as I said, some tribute to some of the students who were not able to attend their ceremonies, and that's a really proud day usually for families. So I feel sorry that you were not able to go down to New Zealand or to have it. That's Martina Siatanga, Hukuiaka Siakia and Te Valley Pavihi. So we decided that we would write to your institutions. Yeah.
The High Commissioner read out messages from the institutions the students graduated from as a tribute to them for completing their programs. Martina Siatanga completed her program from the University of Auckland. Hukuiaki Siakia completed his program from Unitec, and Te Valley Pavihi from the Victoria University of Wellington. The parents of the 3 graduates were also invited to the event, joining the other scholarship students and other invited guests to a brunch. And congratulations to those students, and all the very best to the students continuing your programs. In other news, the government announced yesterday the confirmation of the appointment of Sifa Ioane as the chairperson of the Wangahau Niue Commission and Ben Bitasoni Tānaki as the chairperson of the Taonga Niue Council. Cabinet at its meeting on the 28th of January formally approved the appointments of the 2 chairpersons. All the very best to them in their new roles. And in other news, BCN's General Manager Trevor Siakia and the news team were at the New Zealand High Commission earlier this week to receive our new news production equipment funded by New Zealand through the Pacific Cooperation Broadcasting and Pacifica TV. New Zealand High Commissioner to Niue, Helen Tana, officially handed over the equipment to BCN's General Manager Trevor Siakia earlier this week. The BCN News team are very pleased to receive the new production equipment as part of the Pacific Cooperation Broadcasting Limited and Pacifica TV, the programs funded by the New Zealand Government's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade.
We're really pleased to be able to provide support to Pacific Broadcasting, particularly in the advent of disasters, to enable you to continue to broadcast, and in particular to be able to get the really critical health and safety messages out to the people of Niue. Whether it's a natural disaster or a pandemic, lockdown messages, it's really, really critical that media are able to continue broadcasting and to keep that information flowing to the public. And we know also that it's been a really difficult year for BCN with the fire last year, so we're really happy to be able to help in a little way with this. The Pacific Broadcasting Program and the Media Resilience Program runs across a number of Pacific countries, and it will continue with training and with economic resilience post the COVID pandemic as well.
The package includes training on the use of the equipment, which will begin next month for the news team. Last year, the BCN News team participated in several weeks of training on media resilience with TV New Zealand as part of the support from Pacifica TV and PCBL. Trevor Siakia, the managing director of BCN, accepted the equipment, thanking the New Zealand government for supporting the work of broadcasting.
And on behalf of BCN, I'd like to thank the New Zealand government through MFAT and Pacifica TV for providing us with the necessary resources to allow us to carry out our work. And we'd like also to thank the New Zealand government for funding the training, which is much needed for our staff, and especially for Niue, in order for us to keep the community informed of what is going on throughout the community, especially during disasters. And from the Board of Directors, we'd like to thank you very much on behalf of all the BCN staff. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course,
And to end our bulletin this week, Alofi Marcos has won again at the final tournament of the Niue Touch Association's tournaments. The Mixed Masters Games was held last Saturday. Alofi Marcos played Avasele at the finals. Here's more on that story. 8 teams registered into 2 pools. Avasele beat Hakupu in a tough semi-finals, while Alofi Marcos beat Tuapa Tanks to meet Avasele again at the finals. The Alofi Marcos dominated in the finals against Avasele, defeating Avasele 3-1, taking the Alofi team's tally to 3 wins from the 3 weeks of competitions. The Mixed Masters Touch tournament is for female players aged 27 or older and for male players over the age of 30. Alofi Marcos' oldest players were Jay Berry Sofaya at 61 and 52-year-old Margaret Siosikefu for the ladies. Avasele's oldest players, who also were the playmakers in the final game against Alofi Marcos, were 61-year-olds Willie Sanitelli and Hakemotu Laufoli. And for the Avasele ladies, a 52-year-old woman who wished to remain anonymous. The oldest player in the tournament is 64-year-old Behalo Talangi from Team Tuapa. And congratulations to the organisers and all the players, and especially those in the Masters competitions last Saturday, those who are over 60 years old and still able to get on the field. Congratulations to you all. But from us here at BCN News, you have a lovely weekend. Good night.